But I can't make him stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say. But I keep cruising. Can't stop, won't stop moving. It's like I got this music in my mind saying it's gonna be alright. 'Cause the player's gonna play, 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 play. And the haters gonna hate, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 break.
Breaker's gonna break. Okay, so let's go ahead.
On my feet.
Nope, no more Taylor Swift. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. We are doing Chapter 2, Lesson 5, Percent of Change. Our learning goal is that students will be able to solve problems involving percent change. Here we go. We are doing these two down here. This says MAFS 7.RP.1.3 and MAFS.7.EE.2.3. All this means is these are the two standards that we are covering. This RP stands for ratio and proportions, and these EE stands for expressions and equations. Okay? And the MAFS, those stands for the Math Florida State Standards. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, this is a review. I do want you to write this in your notes. Is over of equals percent over 100. That is what we used for our last few lessons, Chapter 2, Lessons 1 through 4. So this is going to come up again, that we are going to use that for this lesson as well. So I want to make sure that you have that written down. Also, this needs to be written down. Amount of change over the original amount is equal to percent over 100. So write all of this down in your note section. Amount of change over original amount equals percent over 100. Okay, so amount of change should be logical. Okay, that means that if the original quantity is increased, then it is called a percent of increase. If the original quantity is decreased, then it is called a percent of decrease. Remember, increase just means going up, and decrease just means going down. So, for example 1, when we go from $25 to $50, we have increased. Okay, so that is a percent of increase. And then when we went from $100 to $75, we decreased. So we went down. Okay? So that's what it means. When we go up, we are increasing. When we go down from the original amount, we are decreasing. Make sure you write all of this down on your paper before you move along with this. Sorry. Okay, so find the percent of change from 2004 to 2007. Round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Is it a change of increase or decrease? So first we need to find the percent of change, and then we will find is it a percent of increase or decrease. So we are going from 2004, which is right here, to 2007, which is right here. So our original amount, 13.3 to 13.8, we are going up, so we are increasing here. Okay, and we want to put the amount of change, which means we need to subtract the two. 13.8 minus 13.3 gives us 0.5. Okay, and that is our amount of change. We want to put that number over the original amount, and the original amount was 13.3. We are trying to find the percent, so we are going to put our X there, and then 100 always goes on the bottom right. Okay, so we've got to cross multiply here. I'll do this in a different color. 0.5 times 100, and that gives us 50. And 13.3 times x gives us 13.3x. And then to solve this for x, we need to divide both sides by 13.3. 13.3 divided by 13.3 gives us a 1, and 1 times x is just x. And then we have 50 divided by 13.3, and we get a really big long number. It looks something like this. But it did say to round to the nearest 10th of a percent, so we are going to round this to the 10th place. When we round to the 10th place, I want you to underline the place that we are rounding to. Look at the number right behind it, and that number is going to bump us up to 3.8. So I am at 3.8% here. So our answer is 3.8%, and that was our percent of change, and we did increase here. So both of these would count as our answers for this problem. Okay, so it says find the percent of change from 2002 to 2004. So from 2002 to 2004, okay, these are my two numbers. I started out with 13.7 and I went to 13.3, so I did decrease here. And remember, we want the amount of change over the original amount, and that is equal to x over 100 because we are trying to find the percent of change. So we are trying to find the percent, so the x goes where the percent normally goes. Our original amount is 3.7, and that goes on the bottom. I'm sorry, 13.7, and that goes on the bottom because your original amount goes on the bottom. And then our amount of change, which is 13.7 minus 13.3, and that gives us 0.4, and that goes on top because the amount of change goes over the original amount, and then we are looking for our percent over 100. So now we can solve this proportion by cross multiplying. We have 4/10 times 100, and that gives us 40. I'll show you how we're multiplying here. And 13.7 times x is 13.7x. 0.4 or 4/10 times 100 gives us 40. And 13.7 times x gives us 13.7x. To solve, we need to divide both sides by the same thing. So we're going to divide both sides here by 13.7. 13.7 divided by 13.7 gives us 1, and 1 times x is just x. And 40 divided by 13.7 gives us a really big long number again, 2.9197080. And we are already rounding to the nearest tenth here, so we do not have to continue writing our decimal if we are just rounding to the tenth place. You need to underline the place value that you're rounding, which is the tenth place, and we are looking at the number directly behind it. That 1 is not enough to bump the 9 up, so it stays at 2.9%. 2.9%, and it is a percent of decrease. So we are decreasing at 2.9%. Okay, it says find the percent of change, round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. State whether the percent of change is an increase or decrease. Well, we can already see that we're going from 30 to 24, and to go from 30 to 24, we have to go down, so that is decreasing. So it is, the percent of change is a decrease, sorry. And we need to put the original amount on the bottom left, which is 30. That's the original. Our 100 always goes on the bottom right. We're looking for our percent, so that x goes there above the 100 because percents always go over 100. And then we are looking for the amount of change, so we need to subtract 30 minus 24 to give us the amount of change, and that is 6. So to solve this, we need to cross multiply here. So 6 times 100, and that gives us 600. And 30 times x gives us 30x. Okay, to solve this, we need to divide both sides by the same thing. So I'm going to divide this side by 30, and I'm going to divide this side by 30. 30 divided by 30 gives us 1, and 1 times x is x. And 600 divided by 30, the zeros trick is if they both end in zeros, you can just cut off those zeros. And now it's 60 divided by 3. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and we have that 0 left over, so it is 20. So my percent of change is 20%, and it is a decrease, 20% decrease. You can do this math, the 600 divided by 30. You may do that on a calculator. You can also cross multiply up here on a calculator. As you can see, I've done it without a calculator, and you can too. But just to double check, it would be beneficial to go back with your calculator and make sure that you've gotten the right answer. Okay, and our last problem, okay, we need to put our proportion down. 100 always goes on the bottom right. Our original, which is 20.5, goes on the bottom left. We are looking for the percent of change, so an X goes where the percent normally goes. I'm going from 20.5 to 35.5, so I am increasing, so I want to make sure that we are saying that this is an increase for the percent of change. And to find out the difference between the two, you just subtract them, so 35.5 minus 20.5, and that gives us 15. So to solve this, we want to cross multiply here. So 15 times 100 and 20.5 times x. 15 times 100 gives me 1500. And to solve this, we want to divide both sides by the same thing. So I'm going to divide both sides by 20.5. You want to divide by the number in front of the x. So 20.5 divided by 20.5 gives me 1, and 1 times x is x. And 1500 divided by 20.5 gives me 73.1707317. And we are rounding this to the nearest whole percent. Round to the nearest whole percent. The whole percent is just in the ones place. So we are going to look at the number behind the ones place, and that 1 is not enough to bump the 3 up. So it is going to stay at 73%. We are increasing by 73%. Okay? That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow.